Jackie Kid Bird, outstanding fighter, would defeat Tony Canzoneri, January 19th, 1930. And that was a surprise to many, because Tony Canzoneri was on a roll. Fantastic fighter, future Hall of Famer, captured plenty of titles. And Jackie Kid Bird would defeat Tony Canzoneri, January 16th, 1930. What a start to the next series, Boxing's History of the 1930s. Let's examine some of the new breed of fighters that would be coming up in the 1930s. Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Now, 1929, the stock market would crash, and many fighters would be in a depression. Benny Leonard, who I have ranked perhaps the greatest lightweight champion of all times, had lost all his money in the stock market, and he was forced to come out in the 1930s, and he would be facing Jimmy McLaurin, the Vancouver Wildcat. And you had fighters such as Tony Canzoneri, Ballin Ballino, Billy Patrol, Ray Miller, Jackie Kid Bird, fascinating fighter. And he would defeat Tony Canzoneri in 10 rounds in Madison Square Garden, January 16th, 1930. What a way to start the series. Let's take a journey to boxing's history, covering the 1930s. Along with me, Scrapbook Boxing, the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Tony Canzoneri was a lightweight champion, as you can see here. This young man can box. And he would start to rule the 1930s. He was a legend in the making. And as I said earlier, Jackie Kid Bird would defeat him. But that would not be his last opportunity. He'd be in there with Kid Chocolate and many others. And we would see that as we go on. But Tony Canzoneri, one of my favorite fighters, I have him in the top 10, actually ranked number 9, along with the Scotch Wop, Johnny Dundee, and the Ghetto Wizard, Benny Leonard. What a fascinating decade, the 1930s. Max Melling of Germany, in the Boston garb, Jack Sharkey, would meet June 12th, 1930. And Max Melling would win on a foul over Jack Sharkey in 4 rounds in New York to win the vacant heavyweight championship strap that was relinquished by Gene Tunney. Gene Tunney would defend his title once more in 1928 over Tom Heaney, and he would hang up the gloves along with the belt. And you had a lot of young heavyweights scrambling to face for that title. And Jack Sharkey would face Tommy Loughran for the vacant heavyweight championship strap. But that was only to place himself in contention for the real sanctioning position. And Max Melling would take on that challenge. And he would face Jack Sharkey June 12th, 1930, and he would lose to Max Schmeling on a foul. Max Schmeling of Germany would be a threat to many in the light heavyweight and heavyweight divisions. He would be a future opponent for Joe Louis. We would get to that fight in 1936. But Max Schmeling was named the Black Yulin. And he would become the heavyweight champion of the United States of America. Now, Whitechapel, Jackie Kid Bird would take on an outstanding Cuban fighter, and he would defeat him. Now, this Cuban fighter was outstanding, phenomenal, dynamic. As you see here, Jackie Kid Bird of England, sensational fighter, the London Hebrew, by his victory over Kid Chocolate, the Cuban Wonder, is now recognized as the leading contender in the lightweight division. Bird is a human windmill. And they called him the Cuban Bong Bong. Kid Chocolate, fascinating fighter, one of the greatest of all times. I have Kid Chocolate in my top 10, collectively, the greatest black fighters of all time. Kid Chocolate would eventually defeat Benny Bass of Philadelphia in 7 rounds for the Junior Lightweight Championship. November 14th, 1930, Tony Canzaneri, in stunning fashion, knocks out Al Singer in 1 round, Madison Square Garden, to win the lightweight championship. Al Singer of New York, who wrestled the title from Sammy Mendel in 1 round, would lose the exact same way he won it, by first round knockout to Tony Canzaneri. Tony Canzaneri was some fighter. He ruled the early 1930s. He fought them all. Tony Canzaneri with the Scotch Wop, Johnny Dundee, on the scale. Tony Canzaneri, Pancho Villa. Tony Canzaneri, Sammy Mendel. He was a real fighter. Beautiful combinations. He would hold his hands low, but he would move from side to side. He would know every trick in the book. And he was one of the greatest fighters of the 1930s. Fascinating fighter was Tony Canzaneri. And he would take on Al Singer, Madison Square Garden, score a first round unbelievable knockout. August 25th, 1930, Max Baer knocks out Frankie Campbell in 5 rounds. San Francisco. Now Campbell dies from a head injury in his next morning. Max Baer was known to have the hardest right hand in heavyweight history. Well, since then, you've had several hard punches. Ernie Shavers, Smoking Joe Frazier, Big George Foreman, Iron Mike Tyson, and now Deontay Wilder. But Max Baer would hold that crown of the hardest right-hand puncher for many years. In 1931, Tommy Loughran would give Max Baer the boxing lesson of his life. Tommy Loughran, I have him in the top 10 greatest light heavyweight champions of all times. He was a fascinating fighter. He held his hands low, but his hand speed, foot speed, his ability to detect when a fighter was going to throw a punch, what mistakes were going to be made before they were made. That was Tony Canzoneri and Tommy Loughran. And Max Baer, who relied on punching power, couldn't deal with the IQ of Tommy Loughran. And he would be treated to the best boxing lesson of his career. Salute to Tommy Loughran and Max Baer. Great fight. February 6, 1931. July 3rd, 1931, Max Schmeling stops young Stribling in 15 rounds in Cleveland, Ohio, to retain his heavyweight championship strap he would win in a fight with Jack Sharkey. You see, Max Schmeling would win that title on a foul. He would claim that he was hit low and had to be carried back to his corner. And he would defend it against young Stribling. It would be the only KO loss suffered by Stribling in 286 fights. Fascinating. July 4th, 1931, Paulino Escudon would upset the world when he would defeat up-and-coming Max Baer in a 20-round match in Reno, Nevada. The bout is promoted and refereed by Jack Dempsey. Paulino Escudon would be the fighter that Max Schmeling would watch Joe Louis face and say, I see something. And we'll go through that fight in 1936. July 15th, 1931, Kid Chocolate knocks out Benny Bass. 7 rounds. Benny Bass was from Philadelphia. He was a veteran. And Kid Chocolate would knock him out in Philadelphia to win a junior lightweight championship. It would be the passing of a torch. Benny Bass was a fascinating Philadelphia fighter. but it didn't have enough to take on the Cuban bonbon, Kid Chocolate. September 10th, 1931. Tony Canzoneri once again defeats Jackie Kid Bird 15 rounds. Madison Square Garden, he retains his lightweight and junior welterweight championship. He would have an outstanding year. As you can see here, Tony Canzoneri was fascinating. He was a world lightweight champion and ex-world featherweight champion. Outstanding fighter was Tony Canzoneri. September 17th, 1931, former heavyweight champion Marvin Hart dies at the age of 55 in Fern Creek, Kentucky. Marvin Hart never fought for the title and never defended it, but he claimed to be the heavyweight champion